Dan, I'm so excited to welcome you on the Tech Recruitment podcast because you've been there, you've done that, and a lot of people in our community want to be where you are or you were just recently, because you started a staffing agency business alone from scratch. You grew it to eight-figure business, and then you sold it for 28 and 39 million dollars, which is really crazy, isn't it? And here you are now willing to share with fellow tech recruiters on this podcast. What's the secret? How to make it, and just to provide a little context. Lots of people are kind of struggling with the initial phase. So maybe we will kind of not talk that much about going from 10 million to 50 million dollars in revenues, but rather the initial beginning. Like what should someone do in order to get the ball rolling, get the first 10 clients, 100 clients, how to make recurring revenue. So I'm so excited to welcome you on this podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Michal. It's great to be here. So, yeah, should I answer your question? Should I just start digging?
Wow. There are so many questions now in my mind, but why don't we kind of take it step by step? I mean, there are different business models, recurring or permanent placement, temporary. So, what would you recommend as the best starting point for fellow tech recruiters who are there and willing to get some business development and they don't even know what model to consider?
Yes, and the first starting point that is essential that a lot of people skip is understanding what you want to get out of it. Okay, so I'll explain because I had no experience in recruiting or staffing, and I started from backing up by our goal was to build a company that we could scale and exit in a short amount of time, and our goal was to do it in 5 to 10 years and retire in our 30s. So then I mean, we thought of we had all different kinds of ideas of businesses, but it was really what was so important was figuring out what we wanted to get out of it, like our lives, because I mean, this is our lives. It's, so instead of just tackling it like here's a problem I'm going to solve, I'm going to be a recruiter, this is what I'm going to do. I think it's really important to decide how what you want to get out of it and also how you want to live your life, because not everybody wants to do staffing, or some people don't want things to be complicated, they want a lifestyle business. So kind of having an idea, because every all those decisions along the way are really going to define how you're spending your time in your life and your family, and there's a lot of other things to factor in. So I always start with visioning work when I work with people, just to really understand how then you can use that as a blueprint to build your business.
Yeah, that's a good one. Everything has some trade-offs, right? So running the high pace, fast growing business definitely takes some toll on probably health and maybe relationships as well. So for those who are now like really keen to build this type of a high performance business, and they have it already kind of aligned in their minds, what should they do with regards to
Yeah, so
those
okay,
business models?
and so I've done both direct hire and staffing. I'm a big believer in staffing and getting that recurring revenue. And then that way you're not starting over every month. You never blank, really. I mean, once you start building, you build it on top of each other. So that said, you don't have to exclusively do one or the other. But what I think the first thing to do, honestly, like I do everything before I'm ready except for hiring. Okay. Because hiring I do after I'm ready, when I'm like completely like dying and need somebody, or need help. But everything else, so you have to know that's my philosophy. That's how I work, is I just do things before I'm ready. And I'm just so not a perfectionist. So that's really helped. So the first thing, I mean, is to go get business. I mean, the way that I got my first client, like first, so we were a temp agency specializing in it's something that's specific to the US. It's called title insurance, and it's something you need when you buy properties and homes, and it's like, I mean, it's kind of complicated, but the point is it was it was a good niche at the time. It was really good timing for that niche, and we'd identified that by brainstorming what we were going to do. So the lesson on that, it was very niche, and it was good timing in the market. And then we thought, because my dad worked in title insurance, so we thought that his company, he was an executive and he introduced us to HR. We thought we were like, well, if Chicago Title's our client, we're going to be fine. Well, they ended up not even being our client for a long time. And so I just started by checking reference. Like I mean, back then it was, I mean, it was before like job boards and things like that. So way before LinkedIn. So I put out an ad. I got it. Somebody sent a resume, and I was working at a 9 to 5 job. So I had rented a post office box, and I put in the Los Angeles Times, you know, a little like 3 page, 3 line ad. That was the cheapest ad. And then I checked the PO box every single day, and then one day I got a resume, and I was
Wow.
so excited. I cried. I couldn't believe that somebody sent me a resume. And I quit my job. I quit my job the very next day.
Wow. That's
And
so cool.
then I started, you know, and this is like, you know, I mean, things obviously like we're so evolved in technology and everything, but the thing that is still valid is connecting the dots. So like from that one person, that one resume, then okay, how do I make connections from there? Okay, so in that case, it was calling her, you know, we brought her in for an interview. I rented a house that was near where we thought our clients were going to be. Turned out that was our clients were biggest clients were 2 hours away. So, but rented a house and started interviewing and asking questions. Like I had no idea I had no idea what I was doing as far as staffing or recruiting. I didn't even know the industry that I was working in, even though, you know, it was complicated, but just asking questions, asking the candidates questions, and then connecting the dots. And then I called and checked her references. I didn't have any jobs, we didn't have any clients. But from that first reference, that was a multi-million dollar client for years.
Wow. Wow. So you just reached out to the reference and asked if they have a similar opening now?
No, 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 I asked about the candidate. I said, "This is Diane Prince, and I'm calling." We were called Title Temps at first before then we changed our name. But I said, "This is Diane Prince from Title Temps, and I've interviewed, her name was Karen Saul. I interviewed Karen Saul for a title assistant role, and I'm wondering if you have a few minutes to talk to me." And then so it's from that. I didn't try to sell a role. I talked to her former manager, and then from there, he was like, what are you? Who are you?" And then, you know, and yeah, that's really what
Mhm.
got the ball rolling. But how that can be used today, and that lesson is, a lot of people will ask me like, "How do I get started with biz dev?" And usually people think there's like one way to do it, or there's some way that like other people are doing it, or that you have to send cold email sequences, which I love. Like I believe in cold outreach, but also most people have um, you know, just from being a human, like we have connections. And
Mm,
so a lot of times people will consider that their warm leads don't really count
mm,
because they are things that fell in their lap, or like referrals don't really count, but they do. And the important thing is look at all of the people you know, and also who knows you. And even just to start, I mean, tell people what you're doing.
mm,
And you gotta remember that sales business development is the lifeline of your business. So you have to set aside that time, and that is the most important thing that you can do is to build your pipeline. And the easiest way, is a long answer to your question, but the easiest way to just get kickstarted is just do it and just start talking to your warm leads. And by that I mean everybody you know, everybody who's ever interviewed you for a job, anybody who is, you know, knows somebody that might be in the hiring capacity in the role that you're niching in. So really like, and then then you're going to get clues. So like just like that resume I called from my very first client, it was
mm,
looking at the clues and listening, and then seeing where you could put the puzzle pieces together.
mm. And so interesting to see how you are reaching out and connecting with people. From my observation, these days people rather avoid the interactions, or at least most of the people, probably because of, I don't know, social media, or maybe how, now the emails and everything is kind of automated, so it feels easier. I don't know what exactly it is, but it feels like the human interaction is kind of fading away. Or it could also be that a lot of people, also in our community, those who are starting, they just don't feel confident yet because they don't have anything to show just yet. I mean, no product, because it's different when someone in a shop, sells products. So they go and buy the first sample and they have something to show off. But in recruiting, we don't really have anything to show off. So we may feel a bit of the imposter syndrome. Do you have any kind of advice how to overcome this how to say fear of reaching out to prospective clients just because we may not have anything to show just yet?
Yeah, yeah, and some people don't want to be on the phone, and other people do. Like some people crave human connection. So I think it is important to hit people from different to have different strategies. But when you're just starting out, because I hear this a lot, like I don't have, what if they ask me how many years of experience I have or whatever. But if you focus on building the relationship instead of so like what is your niche, Michal? What is your specialty? What do you place?
We have AWS DevOps engineers.
Okay, okay. So one thing you might say, okay, so if you were starting out and you were doing AWS DevOps engineers, did
DevOps.
you say?
This is a cloud. We can simplify it to cloud engineers.
Okay, so you're in cloud engineer. So one thing you might say is you have to, in order to get someone's attention, you have to say something different. And that's not like, even like before chat, it's funny because we even like if we type emails ourselves, we usually sound more robotic than even chat GPT because we like just everybody turns into like, you know, hey, hope you're doing well. I'm I'm Diane Prince and this is what I do. And instead, be yourself and be different. So when you're doing any kind of outreach, say it out loud and don't be afraid to say even like ridiculous things to get people's attention. One thing you might say is I'm Michal. Is it Juhas? How do you
You has is fine. Yeah, you has.
Juhas? I'm Michal Juhas, and you are going to need to know me for your career. I am your, I'm your guy for cloud engineers, or
Mhm.
something like that, something that's going to make you stand out. Um, and but when you get somebody on the phone, I believe in getting someone on Zoom or the phone or whatever. So whatever you have to say, like, I mean, like I worked with one recruiter who she always got people on the phone because she just said ridiculous things that like she was representing two software engineers who were cousins and so that was like her whole thing was like, I'm gonna work this out with like cousins or like I mean it was just funny. It was just strange and funny, but things that got people's attention that other people weren't saying, So
Mhm.
you think about that and really have fun and use your personality. It's not that serious, and it's like, and that's another thing, just look at it like they're just when you're reaching out, don't you don't if you're 10 people tend to put prospects on a pedestal, they're just people in jobs, right? Like they're just people in jobs who have problems and that you could probably solve. Okay.
Mhm.
So the first thing is how do you get them to have a call? I do believe in having calls. So be yourself, be genuine, um, and don't be afraid to say something crazy. Okay. And then you don't have to have a product quite yet. I mean, I didn't, you don't have to have a product. You can, I mean, a lot of people do MPC marketing, most placeable candidate, that can work. But also, even if you're doing that outreach, you want to focus on them. So instead of like if you were doing a new call and you're talking to an engineering manager or something, I wouldn't approach it like who you are and what you've done and what your experience is. I mean, maybe for you because you do have interesting experience because you're a CTO, so that is interesting. But you want to put it on them. Ask them questions, like get to know them, even if they don't have a role. Hey, I might say like, "Hey, I'm Diane Prince. I'm going to be your person to help you build your recruiting agency." Okay,
Mhm.
so like I am the only coach you need to know, right? Tell me and ask them, if you identify their problems, then you can decide like what is the best solution for them, and look at it like, don't, instead of looking at it like you're pitching something, look at it like you're trying to get to know this person. You're curious about what their problems are and what their needs are.
Okay, cool. That sounds actually good. Like the phrase that you just used, I'm the guy you need to build your team or something along these lines. That actually sounds friendly and easy to remember. That's
Yeah.
that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. And what's next then? Now, imagine we are building those relationships. So we get someone who likes us to help them build a team. And this actually brings us to the business model that we were discussing. The staffing brings the recurring revenues, which seems to be better, but it could also be more difficult to arrange, no? Because you know financial, probably cash flow could be more difficult. So based on your experience now, would you say this is a good starting point for a freelance recruiter who is getting the first client to work for, or would you kind of suggest the permanent placement business model?
I mean, I did not start with permanent placement. I started with staffing, which was complicated, and I knew nothing about it. Like I knew nothing about, and it's different in different countries, but I knew nothing about like are the laws or taxes or anything like that. And I just started, and there's companies that help that figure it out. So you might have and I don't know, someone you might have a stockpile of cash. You might have
Mhm.
cash because you've done some direct hires, whatever. So and even if you have that, you can hire companies that help you with the payroll. You can also bring in employer of record companies. If you do that, you just have to know what their fee is so that you can build that out into your margins. So I say, like, when you're talking to somebody, find out like what they need. Because, okay, say you're just starting out and you're thinking, okay, direct hire is going to be easier. Okay, but you talk to someone and they say they're great, they're a prospect, and they say, actually, Michal, we're doing this project and we actually need 3 contract cloud
Mhm.
engineers.
Yeah.
So why would you walk away from that business when you could, and it doesn't mean like just because they say that doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden you're placing someone tomorrow. Then you're starting to get the requirements, and then and then you go to someone like me. I always tell people, like, find out if they need contractors, then call me because we can help put it together pretty quickly. But and the see, so like people think, yeah, there's a lot there having contractors or temp staffing is more complicated, but at the same time, um, direct hire is hard. Like it's hard not knowing where your next placement's coming from.
Yeah.
You really have to be, if you're building. Like I work with people on building a business, not just a free. Like most people that come to me are looking at building a business to scale, whether they want to keep it as a lifestyle business or sell it or exit it. Um, so some people want a freelance recruiting business, a direct hire business. They don't want any of the other complications. That's great. You just have to know, you have to have the discipline to set money aside to invest in other things, to build wealth other ways, so that if you can fall back if God forbid you get sick or something happens, and that can fall apart when the economy. We all see dips in economy. People freak out, and people are freaking out because like we've got like decreased 3%, which is, but you kind of see how people freak out. Um, but so you need to make sure that you're going to be able to have that discipline. Because then, I mean, I talk to people who are past, with like typical retirement age, but they've just been doing direct hire and they had to take money out of whatever their investments were. So they don't really have an asset that
Mm.
they can either sell or, yeah, or still bring in
Yeah.
revenue.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to clarify, the direct hires doesn't really build any assets, right? So it's hard to sell. But on the other hand, the staffing business model is easier to sell because it's based on the recurring revenues.
Correct, correct. And you're like totally embedded into your clients, and you have to have a diversified client base. You can't just have one big client. I had in the 2008 financial crisis, Countrywide Home Loans was our biggest client. They went bankrupt, but
Mm.
and we lost they were bought by Bank of America, and we lost that contract, but at the same time, we still had a whole bunch of contractors on site there, so we still had that revenue. So it wasn't like if it was just direct hire, that all of that business would have gone away. But we also had a diversified client base, which is really important to have an anchor client strategy. So you can do things like that with contract staffing that you can't really do with a direct hire business. There's also RPO is another recurring revenue model that some people I work with choose.
Awesome, awesome. And now with your clients, do you see any other interesting niches? Because the one that you focused on, it sounds just so crazy. I would have never thought that this would even make a living for someone, not even
Uh,
to scale to eight-figure business. It's just amazing. So what
yeah.
are some other niches that you
Well,
see?
what's crazy about that though, I want to say is that our average bill rate was about $50. So imagine how many people we had out to get to like $1 million weeks. But
Wow.
okay, I'm not going to share into the niches because people like literally because when I talk to people, it's confidential. And the people with really good niches are like, please do not tell anyone about this niche. So I'm not going to do it. I can't.
Totally makes sense.
But it is, it is one thing though is that some people really are scared to niche.
Yeah.
And I would just say, don't be, because once you do, and you can pivot, and being in it, choosing a niche doesn't mean that that you have to refuse any business outside of your niche, but
Mm,
it does, it help. I mean, one thing it helps with your marketing, your branding, your messaging is more clear. You're going to attract. I mean, look at like my coaching business. I started by coaching. I was coaching all kinds of founders, tech founders, startups, business owners, and then I'm like, okay, I got to follow my own advice. Let me really niche. And once I started
mhm,
niching and staffing and recruiting, it's been crazy. Like I get, my LinkedIn's blown up. I've stopped doing cold outreach. I get incoming leads all day from LinkedIn. So it's really
wow,
powerful when you niche. You can become, not only is it about marketing and branding, but you can truly become this expert. You can get to know who the candidates are. You can develop relationships with the candidates. Like we had such deep relationships with our candidates, and when we were able to, when we had roles, sometimes we were just able to call our candidates and say, "Hey,
mm,
who do you know?" So
mm.
really, you can. People are afraid to like not have the other business, and you can choose whether or not to, if you're going to accept that business, but it is so much easier to get
Mm.
business when you're specialized.
And just to align on the level of niching down, I'm just kind of now I have some flashbacks with some recruiters who I've been in touch with. They were saying like, "Hey, I focus on healthcare and IT," and I'm like, "Well, that's quite a broad focus, you know."
Mhm.
And some people focus on IT, but that still seems to be a bit broad, not even having both at the same time, finance and IT. Some people go a bit deeper to I don't know, cloud engineering, but that's still a bit too broad because there could be Amazon cloud or Azure cloud or whatever other cloud. And in
Yeah.
your case, it looks like you went like really, really down. So how many tiers of these niches are there? Like what should be considered as a good niche? How do you even define a niche? Because people may have different perceptions of what the niche actually is.
Yeah, I think the more narrow you can get, the better. And like I'm still narrowing my niche and as far as coaching, and I'm like, okay, now the people want this, and you start seeing clues, right? So you also have to see what the market's like, because you have to have the right timing in the market. So yeah, so what I recommend is looking at one thing that you think you can do, right? Like I did not know anything about my niche, but I learned. Um, it's easier if you know something. I hired recruiters. I think I mentioned this to you. You're a CTO doing tech recruiting, which is amazing. And I hired recruiters. I did not hire recruiters. I hired people from title insurance who had
Mhm.
other roles, who knew what the roles were. So I think you do have to test the market. Really, the only way to test the market is to start selling. But you can look at, you look at you do some market analysis, see what jobs are posted. how many of those jobs are posted by agencies versus clients. You want kind of a balance. You want to see also that they're, maybe they are recruited. In my case, with our niche, we really, there were some agencies doing it, but it was more like the giant, like Adecco did some title insurance, but they weren't niched. So once we came in, and then there were some niche players, but they were very um, small. Like they were doing, I mean, we were small, we were just starting, but we went into it with the attitude that we're going to blow this up.
Mm. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. And then how can you actually blow this up? This is so interesting because you have the attitude, the mindset, but you didn't really know anything about it, and you learned on the way. So how is that even possible? I mean, how can someone blow the market just by picking up the phone and getting clients and reaching the eight-figure business?
It was just unstoppable execution. And
Hmm.
it was funny because people would say to us along the way, like, they come and, back then they'd pick up their paychecks or whatever, and they make comments. Like we hear comments all the time, like, "Oh, I thought of this, great idea. I thought of this 3 years ago." But we're like, okay, well, we're the ones sitting here like printing money, because we're doing it. And so, another person said when we sold one of our temp employees said it's like you won the lottery, and we're like, no, we actually, yeah, the money is like the like lottery money, but we actually built a plan and executed on the plan. So it's about being disciplined. You have to say no to a lot of things. I think maybe it was our pre-conversation we were talking about being distracted, and I can't remember when you said, but talking about like social media, and TikTok's a lot more fun. It's, turning that off. It is harder now. It's much harder to stay focused because there's so much noise. And so I think it's important to look at the realities also of your life, and things that, because a lot of people miss this too, because any issues that you have in your life or your family, if you're not addressing those are going to come through in your business, and habits you might have, and sometimes, I mean, it's you have to look at things like that. Like if you have, maybe it's substance abuse or something like that, because people ignore that a lot, of things that they might have in their lives. And it could be too much scrolling on Facebook, that things that sound kind of like, for me, one of the things was coffee. Like I realized I was getting super anxious, and I was not great to work with, because I was just, I got really cranky, and then I realized, like, I stopped drinking coffee. And I mean, like, so sometimes it's things like that that are really like looking at, because as a founder, you have to be in your best health. And that's gonna just help you to like eliminate things that do not serve you. And you also have to say no to a lot of things. So there it takes a lot of discipline, and not everybody's cut out for it, but it takes a lot of discipline, and then knowing to keep executing through. Like I have one client who she's like started out and killing it with an RPO agency. And so she in her first 4 months, they had done like 300K. And then things started getting slow. But that was kind of, she was scared. She's like, I haven't closed a client in 2 months. Well, sometimes that the sales cycles take a long time, and sometimes there's like a, tiny bit of clients that you're going to get at the right time who are ready to buy from you. Sometimes it's going to take a while. Sometimes it's a long RPO. There's a longer sales cycle than if you're just going to work on contingent. So it's knowing when to. Sometimes you have to pivot, but also, the way somebody put it to me once is sales is boring and monotonous. And as business owners, we don't do well with boring and monotonous. Like we want to build things and we're visionary. But at the beginning, when it's just you, or maybe it's you and a couple of other people, and you're doing the work, you do have to, also dig into that boring and monotonous. I mean, we made a lot of mistakes when we were like, oh, let's start this, let's start a training division, let's start teaching people how to be title examiners. That all failed, because the
Mhm.
problem was that we weren't just like, what we should have done is just kept on honing in and doing what we did really well. So
Mm.
yeah, that's it's the execution and having the discipline even sometimes when you're not motivated. But that's where that vision comes in and is so important in keeping up your motivation.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned so many interesting things just in the last 1 or 2 minutes with regards to the vision and mission, which often in recruiting is hard to find because as I'm working in the technology space, there are all these cool companies that build robots or they build some satellites that go to the space to help fight climate change, and then there we are in recruiting, finding CVs and sending to clients. If I kind of simplify it a bit, so a lot of the recruiters may struggle finding the purpose in this. They take it as a job, they take it transactionally, but there is no bigger purpose. So how did you find the purpose in your activity and your business?
Yeah, I love this question because it even with founders, because I've executive coached startup founders with companies that are doing good for the world and having these big visions. But even with that, I believe you still have to know what your personal vision is. Because if the company is not going to work for you, you're not doing any good to anybody. So it's not going to work. So if so I don't so some businesses are built to solve a problem in the world, right? But I think it's also really important to have a vision, your own kind of. It can be selfish what your own vision is. So, like, say you want to build a big recruiting agency or whatever reason, but why? So, like, what is that going to do for you? What are the things that you can do once you're making a profit of $500,000 a year, once you're making $2 million, if you sell your business, whatever it is, like what are the things, like what does that mean to you? And it means different things for different people. But if you and I don't believe that you can force a vision or that you can force a passion, but you can certainly look at and um kind of play that movie in your head of what your life's going to look like. I mean, I believe that having money, it makes I mean, look at our politics or don't look at our politics because they're crazy. But like, money is power. And with money, you can make things happen that you want. So getting really clear on like what else, I mean, everybody said I like to help people find jobs and whatever. That's great. I mean, we do that and that's awesome. And we help companies solve problems. We match people. I mean, we do a lot of things that people need. Well, we're obviously solving a problem, but making that vision really a personal and then what that means to you, what you can do with
Mm.
your money or even your lifestyle. Like for me, I had while I was building businesses, I had 3 kids. During like I started with no kids, went through like 3 kids, and for me, like I worked a lot. I worked crazy amount, and I made sacrifices, but also I was able to set my own hours. So there's like that to me was part of it. And then I was able to spend most of my 30s retired. And that was awesome. So that was, spend time with my kids, but also, did a lot of fun things too.
Well, that's certainly inspiring for a lot of people who are listening to you right now, and they are kind of pumped up and ready to start sending some cold outreaches to prospective clients.
Yes.
Awesome. So, just to be mindful of your time, is there any kind of advice that you would have for a bit more senior recruiters who already are a bit further in their careers? They have clients, they may be earning good money, and now they are looking at AI and everything that comes with it, the hype, and some people who are saying, hey, recruiters will be replaced by AI. So
Mhm.
what would be your kind of piece of advice for these concerns?
Yeah, well, having been doing this for so long, I mean, that's been a conversation for 30 years. Like since I started in it, people were talking about being replaced by technology. So it's just the technology is advancing and uh but I think understand the tools, how you can use the tools to make your life easier and to help you to scale because I mean, even like AI and how the world is now. I mean, you can have virtual assistants, you can have team members in all different countries with different specialties. So what I would say, my advice is use your personality and your personal advantages. Don't worry about the things that you can't control. Because if you're sitting there, worried about like what the future is gonna, you have to do some kind of forecasting, right? And be smart about that. But look at the things you can control. Use technology as a tool, but also this is still a relationship driven business, and relationships to for the foreseeable future, unless we become singularity. We're all machines, but I don't know what that might happen. I don't know, but for the time being we still are humans.
Yeah.
And so just worry about the things that you can control and use the tools, and don't get overwhelmed by tools either, because that's a big conversation we have in my program, and like what tools to use, and people share, but there's going to be another tool next week to replace
Mhm.
that tool. So don't worry too much about it. Choose some things and just see things that work and dig in further to the things that work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if we just take your 5 years as a benchmark, it looks like we still have time to build an agency and sell it. Because the
Before before we
singularity,
become robots.
yeah, before robots replace us completely. So we have some unique window of opportunity in the
Right,
next
make
few.
a lot of money now so you can build your
Yeah, yeah, we need to really rush things to
exactly.
quickly execute. Awesome, awesome. That's awesome. I mean, there are so many opportunities on the market. It's really crazy. And speaking of some of these businesses to be developed and clients to be onboarded, probably the last question would be regarding the offer that you would present to them. So it's kind of clear that we would focus on the staffing model, but is there any kind of special offer that you would present as a hook to these clients? Like sometimes, for example, for the permanent placement, I've seen recruiters who give a bit discount for the first placement, or they play with a guarantee or whatever. Like, is there any kind of approach that you would recommend as a good door opener?
Yeah, well, I never start with a discount. So what I would rather go in and be the most expensive person in because you're going to get their attention, right? Because if you say like even if you say like 25%, they're going to be like everyone's, you still sound the same as everybody else. So I never want that to be a differentiator. But find out what they need, right? Because I wouldn't say go into it with this is what your only offer is. You want to find out what they need, what's important to them, especially if you're just starting out because you're just kind of testing the market. And then if they negotiate, like say you're doing direct hire, and you go in and you say, my rate's 25%. Let's say 25%. And they say, well, can you do 20%? Well, first of all, there's a lot of numbers in
Mhm.
between there, and do some calculations as well. Also, if you're doing contractors and you're negotiating your margins, do calculations because it's easy to kind of give things away on the spot. But anytime that I negotiate, first of all, so I remember all the numbers between 20 and 25. So I might say, okay, well, I can do, maybe you arrive then at 22.5%. Okay. And then I ask for some other things, or if they insist on, whatever rate. Okay, but I can do that. Here are the things that I'm really going to need from you. Okay. I need access to the hiring manager's calendar. I need to know, I need to have an onboarding conversation, whatever it is, but use negotiating as a time to build dialogue, and or they can be things that you don't do or whatever, so yeah, but and when you look at negotiations, you too also want to make it, even whether you're doing contract or direct hire, like the clients are, they can see it. Like when you bring in a salesperson, your goal is not to reward them the least amount of possible. Your goal is to compensate them so that they're motivated to do your job. So sometimes it's educating the client. This is how it works. I have a team of recruiters. If Amazon's paying 30% fees and you're paying 18%, who do you think they're gonna, which roles would you work on? So a lot of it's educating your clients as well.
No, that's a good one to help them understand how we work, also, right? What we are incentivized by. That's good. Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Well, I'm kind of wondering before we wrap it up, do you have any final advice to people out there, to fellow recruiters, especially those in the tech industry now? As a part of the Tech Recruitment Academy, we have all these people who are kind of transitioning or would like to transition. So, what would you like to share with this audience?
I guess I just say have fun and you can do it. It's not like this industry is not like we don't have to have, I share it sometimes in my if I have a slide deck and a presentation, I share a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but like, so he's like become, I mean, I love his motivational speech. It's amazing. And then look at the like we don't need any special genetics. We don't need, there's no like degree that we need. This is like it's sort of like this like amazing opportunity for people who have no skills. I don't know, like, but for some reason we're driven to do it and we're motivated. We have to be motivated and have a sense of urgency, but we're not like, it's not like we have this incredible voice or you probably wouldn't be doing this. But so yeah, just so remember, like it's not that serious, and it's an opportunity. And if you're ever questioning, because people are like, "Oh gosh, that sounds so crazy to build an eight-figure." I mean, there were people who started when I did that are now billionaires because they're still doing it. So just look at look for you can look to other founders who are successful for motivation. This is a business you can even build generational wealth. Like you sell a business like that, that's it is like you it's really a business can really be life changing. So just get clear, understand that you can do it. There's no reason why you can't do it. You just kind of keep on putting the pieces together, and don't get. This is more than one piece of advice, but don't get over. Things can be overwhelming. So if you do get overwhelmed, just do the next thing. Just remember, like business is putting the next piece in the puzzle. So you don't have to have it all figured out on day one. Just keep on going, just take the next step and the next step and the next step after that.
Well, this was very helpful, exciting, and inspirational. So thanks a lot for sharing all the insights. And where can people connect with you? Where they can learn more about you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's one of the best places. I do daily posts of tips that are tips
Mhm.
for recruiting agency owners. So I'm Diane Prince, and you can go to if you go to my website, it's dianeprince.co. And my LinkedIn, you can go to it's dianeprince.co/LinkedIn. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And I'm pretty
Uh,
easy to find if you just Google me. I'm all over. I have a YouTube and other stuff like that.
Wonderful. I'll include these links in the show notes and in the
Amazing.
comments on YouTube as well. Awesome. Well, thanks again for sharing. It was really nice getting to know you and learning from your experience.
You too, Michal. I look forward to staying in touch with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.